Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I just recently got a request to go over my workflow as to how I go about basically printing, say for instance on a 13 by 19 paper, and basically loading a 12 by 18 image. And I wanted to have that 1-inch border all the way around, or it could be an 11 by 14 for all it matters. People apparently are having trouble doing this, so I'm going to go ahead and take you through the steps that you need to go through in Lightroom, which is really the best choice for this. So we have currently an image open here, and let's just choose 11 by 14. In this case, that was the actual question being asked. So we're going to go ahead and click on the R key on your keyboard, and that will activate the crop tool. I want to make sure that this is actually set to an 11 by 14 ratio, because if it's not, you're going to end up having part of your image cropped. That's just part of the game, folks. You have to realize that that will happen. You have to have your image to the correct ratio that will fit on that 11 by 14 space that you're going to create to then be printed centered on a 13 by 19 piece of paper. So let's go ahead and click on the letter R on your keyboard, and that will activate your crop tool. We're going to go ahead and go over here to the right where it says aspect. We're going to click on the drop down menu and see if we can find 11 by 14. Obviously we cannot. So we're going to hit custom, enter custom, and we're going to enter the aspect ratio that we need. I don't know whether this is going to be horizontal or vertical. We have to make sure that that is what we get. So as you can see, it did crop a little bit off the edges. Okay, that's just the way it is. You really cannot do anything about this unless you literally physically stretch the image or compress the image inward to make it fit, but then you'll have a distorted image. So let's just go ahead, accept this. We're going to go ahead and double click, and that will crop it. Now this image is an 11 by 14 ratio. Okay, we're going to go over to the print module, and I have another image here loaded, as you saw. Wait a minute, this is not going to work. We have 4 by 6. All right, so let's go over to our page setup. We're going to pick a printer such as the P800. That's one of our favorites to print nice fine art type photographs. We'll click on the size menu here, and we will try to find that elusive 13 by 19. There it is right there. And we're going to be feeding from this sheet top feeder. And that is it. We're not going to worry about color management right now, because all we want is to be able to fit that image so that it fits as an 11 by 14 inside that 13 by 19 sheet of paper. Click OK, and obviously that's not what we want, right? So what we need to do is go over to the right. We're going to click zoom to fill always. And now it did fit it, but that's not what we want. We want to be able to create a cell size. And first of all, notice that we have some minimal non-printable margins here. Okay, and those are not going to hit 0. And in fact, the left is 11/100ths of an inch. The right one is 13/100ths of an inch. And I cannot change that. So they are different. They do differ. So 11 and 13. So how can we bring these down to 0 so that then we can create a cell that will fit exactly on the center point? Well, believe it or not, what you have to do is choose borderless. We're not going to really be printing borderless, folks, but we're going to choose that at this point. And there's the little box. We'll click it. We'll get a warning that that's going to possibly cause some damage to the edges of the print. That sometimes happens. And again, we're back to where we were, but now we can bring these margins down to 0, as you can see. And that's really critical, because if I create a cell, it's not going to be centered because of those margin restrictions. So we have to choose borderless in this case and bring the margins down to 0. That is the key point. Leave everything down to the minimum. Now we're going to create that 11 by 14 so-called cell. So the height is going to be 14 inches. and the width is going to be 11. And we click, and now we're gonna grab our image and try to move it. There's nothing to move. Okay, remember I cropped it to 11:14 ratio. That is the critical thing. Had I not done that, it would not fit completely. So let's go ahead, remove that one, and we're gonna load this other one here. Notice now I have a bit of a margin on either side because the original image is not at the 11:14 ratio. Okay, let's try another one. Again, the same thing. You see that this one is even more and more cropped. This is more of a rectangular 2:3 ratio image, I think. So that's not going to fit as an 11:14. I would have to have pre-cropped it to 11:14 ratio. And I keep saying ratio because we're not talking about inches here. We're talking about ratio. We're going to fit it to an 11:14 inches cell. In this case, we can solve this by zoom to fill. And now watch, I can move that image around. What basically happened was it just got enlarged. See how the edges were not to the edges of the cell? Zoom to fill just zooms that image, makes it larger, and now the edges, those margins that were there, are now gone. But now it cropped the vertical and the lower edge off, and you can, play around with that. That would not be good, okay? You need to have an image that you originally cropped to an 11:14 ratio, and that's what you meant to do. In other words, you wanted that crop, such as this one. Even if I zoom to fill, nothing. I am not losing any of the original image because it has been properly cropped. Now, this distance from this edge to the bottom edge and from this edge to the edge where the cell begins is the same, as is the left and right margins or borders in this case. So that's how you do it. Now let's do something else. Let's do another one. Let's get rid of that one. And we're going to go ahead and change the cell size to 18 by 12. And we end up, again, the same image. Now it's not longer going to fit. Remember, it was not cropped to that particular ratio. So it's all about your ratios and the cell size that you choose in the end, whether it fits perfectly like a glove or it does not. In this case, that 11:14 ratio image does not fit in a 12:18 cell. You have room to play with now. So again, it really may not matter much. I mean, I could probably arrange this. That would not be a good way to composite this because the horizon is smack down the middle. That would not be a good example of the rule of thirds. And so maybe right about here, that would be the best example. The sky is boring. We don't need the sky. We can just basically move it over to about that point right there. The horizon will be beyond the center line, more toward the first third of the image, maybe right there. And then we can go ahead and print it. So that would be a 13:19 with a 12:18 image centered. Half inch, half inch, half inch, half inch. Now, do not be surprised. Do not be surprised if it is not exactly that, because the positioning of the paper is never exact as you place it in your feed tray. It could be slightly shifted to the right or to the left, and so these borders may not be equal, okay? Keep that in mind. It is impossible for these basically home use type photo printers to give you that level of accuracy for paper placement, okay? It's just not going to happen. So you can go through all of these exercises here and still not achieve a perfect half-inch border all around. Okay, keep that in mind. But at least this gets you very close. Let's try something else. Let's go ahead and do, I don't know. Let's do a 1-inch border. So we're going to reduce this by 1. It'll be 17 instead. And the bottom one will be 11. And now we have the same image. Again, fit it as well as it can. because it was never the correct so-called ratio. Let's try this one. Maybe this one will be a better fit. Nope, still not the correct ratio. So, you're going to lose a little bit of your image. You're going to be cropping, if you will, a bit of the actual image as you attempt to place it in your cell that you create. But again, you have to play with the layout. The sun is off center, which is what you should have. Maybe here or here, doesn't matter. Never put it back in the center. That is not a really good rule as far as composition goes. So either to the left or to the right. So at least in this case, because of the extra image included in this particular file, I can play around and locate it the way I want to. And if I choose to do that, I can just go ahead and print it. I'll have a 1-inch border all the way around. Again, it's not going to be absolute micrometer perfect, but it will be close. Okay, you can never get it perfect. Just accept that from now on, and you will not be losing sleep over this. Okay, that's the way it is. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. Again, it's very simple. Print borderless and then remove all of the margins here. Make this to 1 and then set your cell. Zoom to fill if your image is not quite the correct ratio, and you're good to go. Let me leave you with a couple other images here. This one is one that I did for my good friend. And again, that gives me a little bit of room to play around. There's a girl right there that I need to cut out, but we'll leave her there for now. And that would be perfect right there, except for that. That is not good, right? So, what can we do? Well, this needs to be cropped further. So you have to go back to the develop module and maybe use the crop tool again. And we're going to go ahead and remove that. Well, now we changed the ratio, didn't we? Now we certainly did change the ratio. We also have to rotate it a little bit, make sure that the Washington Monument is actually straight up. We'll bring this over about right there. I have no clue what that ratio is. Let's see how it fits within that image. Well, it doesn't fit very well now, does it? So we have to remove zoom to fill and just simply accept the fact that the upper and lower border is going to be larger than the side borders. There's no way that I can fit that image with equal space borders all the way around, because the image ratio just doesn't fit. Okay, it just does not fit. So you know what to do. You can continue playing around, zoom to fill, figure out where you want it to be. Maybe right there, maybe that's not too horrible. Or you can just increase the cell size just a little bit, maybe down to 11.5. That will give me a little bit larger than 1/2-inch border, and that fits a lot better. So you see what I mean? You can play with that cell size. It will still remain center as long as you chose borderless and you moved all of the sliders to 0 on the minimal printable margin settings. Okay, that's critical that you do that. All right, that is it for now. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, as always, continue to support the channel by subscribing, sharing, and liking. And until the next time, as always, happy printing, everybody, and bye-bye.